So I really truly, when we started using the oils, we were introduced to the oils 8 years ago, and love the whole concept of oils. Love the fact of, our body uses them, sees them as food, uses them so efficiently. But then when I started to learn the emotional properties of oils, I was like, oh, wow. And for me, I am an emotional person. I just am. I've always been that way. I was just gonna say, my mom and sister were gonna be on, and they probably will come here eventually. But and I know they would be like, "You think?" And it used to be really embarrassing to me because like I can cry very easily, but not always because I'm sad, or not always because
she's a joiner.
Well, absolutely. I mean, I remember one time I was watching a funeral I actually remember who it was. It was Payne Stewart, who's a golfer. And I am like sobbing watching this funeral. And my husband's like, hun, you don't even know him. And I'm like, it doesn't matter. And I mean, my heart just hurt. And again, it hurts for the family. And anyway, and so I'm emotional. And like I said, I used to feel embarrassed, whatever about that. But then I just realized that that's just the way that God made me. And so I just, once I started to
we're going to do a screen share. So we're going to go away first.
But, and they're not going to stay. I just want to show a couple things. Cause I saw this quote, kind of when I was starting to do, learning more about emotions and our bodies and oils and all the things. And this is one, if any of you are friends with me on Facebook, you saw that I used this actually in my story this morning. And it says, whoops, we're at the end, 1 second. But it says, feelings are much like waves. We can't stop them from coming, but we can choose which ones to surf. And I thought, how, that's just, think about that for a second. Okay. Again, we can't stop our feelings from coming. And to be honest, nor do we want to. We need to have feelings. That's how we were made. We were made to have feelings, to feel things. But they come, and they often come like waves. And if any of you have them, sometimes they literally come like a monsoon. And sometimes they come. Have any of you ever been at the beach and you just minding your own business, walking in the water or playing in the water, and all of a sudden this wave comes out of nowhere and takes you down, and you're like, what the world? Where did that come from? But aren't our feelings like that? Carol and I were just talking earlier, where unless you think that I can sit here and talk about emotions and that my life is peachy keen and hunky-dory, no, not always. And I have some things in my life right now that causes great hurt and deep hurt. But again, sometimes I can talk about it just fine. And other times I can be standing in the middle of a store and could break down because it's just those things. So again, we all have feelings. A lot of times we want to think that we don't, but we do. We just show them different way. But this is one thing that I love. Your feelings are not the boss of you. And I think that, okay. I think one thing that I just want to kind of take hold of is I want to learn tools and ways to manage our emotions so that they don't manage us. Because again, we all know those feelings, and we have those feelings. But again, it's not letting them manage us. Yeah. We could go back to just us. So my doctor, you all know that we see a holistic doctor, and we were talking one time, and she said all issues are either structural, chemical, or emotional, but most of the time they're all three. And so I think that is so important, because if we think about that, and if you think of situations that you're dealing with in your body, whether it's something you're struggling with pain-wise or something that you're dealing with, and it's like, okay, where's this coming from? Well, a lot of the time it's coming from, some of it might be chemical, some of it's structural, and some of it's emotional. And so just kind of, and I love kind of peeling back those layers. Just kind of a rule of thumb for me from the practical aspect of oils. If I'm dealing with something and I've been dealing with it and I've thrown everything at it from the structural aspect, and nothing seems to be working, I then very quickly now pivot to the emotional aspect and go, okay, is there an emotional component? Did you all know, and those of you that have been around a while might know this, but that our body organs actually are correlated with different emotions, but we'll talk about that a little bit more. When I learned that concept, I was like, wow, that is like, that's kind of crazy to think that. But again, if you look at how the body was made and put together and the order and structure that it is, nothing really surprises me anymore. I just am again shocked and amazed at the creation that the human body is. And I think it's so interesting. So again, we have, if you think about it, okay, so we're dealing with, again, structural, chemical, emotional components. And then I saw this quote the other day that made me, it says our connection is unstable.
Keep talking. If we go away, we'll be back.
We'll be back. I saw this quote the other day and I thought it was so interesting. And it was about the brain and detoxing kind of the brain. And we think so much about detoxing the body and we focus on all of that, but sometimes we don't think about the fact that the brain needs to be detoxed and we need to work through some of that and come up with some techniques or some things that you utilize to really help kind of detox the brain. So what are some things that you all, and this is where I'm gonna, if you all can type in the chat, what are some things that affect our emotions? I'll give you a second because I know there's a little bit of a delay, but what are things that can affect our emotions? Stress, good job. That was my first one written down. Stress, absolutely stress.
And there are good stressors and bad stressors.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's
and
kind of
can your body tell the difference?
No, it actually doesn't. It's just stress is stress. So, and again, we can't control all of that, but that gives us some good. So stress, how about hormones? Any of you all ever struggle that those affect anything at all? Hormones? No? Good. We all good. Good job. Environmental factors? Absolutely. Lack of sleep, fatigue is huge. And we're going to talk in depth a little bit about that in a minute. Let me give you this one. Hunger. I don't know about how you all, I have one child and that we always used to say, do not let him get hangry because it went bad, could go from good to bad pretty fast. So let me ask you, and those things we just talked about. So we've talked about stress, hormones, fatigue, hunger, environmental stresses. How many of those can we actually control? I can only think of one. Hunger.
Yeah.
Really, truly,
and sometimes
right?
we can't control
and you're right. And sometimes we can't. So a lot of the stress, a lot of the emotions that we feel from some of these triggers, they're literally out of our control. So we do have, I think it's good to have a plan. I think it's good it's kind of one of those things where like when our kids were growing up, I would be very much, okay, let's talk this through before it happens. So that that isn't the first time, or practice saying this back to me, and I always told my kids, you can always blame anything on me. If you're in a situation that you need to get out of, whatever you need to do, get out of that situation. So, but again, the plan, I know for us utilizing our oils and our products can be a huge part of that plan. And so the 3 ways, what are the 3 ways that we use oils? I know you all know because I know you're here. So we have internal, topical, and aromatic, right? Yes. So internal, that is when, we're taking, and again, we're talking about doTERRA oils. The reason when we say that, we want to clarify is because we know how our oils are grown and distilled and taken care of. So we know all of that and we trust that process. Not everything out there, to be honest, not everything is trustworthy. Your 97-cent frankincense oil, it's not trustworthy. I would not take that. I wouldn't do anything with it, but I certainly would not take it internally. So, but here's the cool part about emotions. So when we can utilize oils internally that can help regulate and help to take care of our gut, which is actually the second brain. So I think this is an interesting, just that whole concept of the gut. So when somebody starts talking to me about anxiety, stress, all the things, one of the very first questions I ask is, do you use a probiotic? And they look at me like, because again, the gut is so much, and I don't know about you all, but when I get nervous, upset, concerned, my gut immediately turns into a ball. And usually I have to go to the bathroom. So again, that's the body's response to the stress of that. So the internal ways we use oils, topical. And that is, I like to do when we're doing something, anything that is brain related, I like to do up the back of the neck as close to the brain as possible. That and over body organs. And here is a really cool picture that I want to show you. So each part of our body, each organ in our body has an emotion associated with it. And so I'm going to show you this picture so that you can kind of see what it kind of affects the different bodies. So if you can see, anger weakens the liver, grief weakens the lungs, worry weakens the stomach, stress, the heart and brain, and fear weakens the kidneys. So just look at that for a second, because I'm like, oh my goodness. So again, if you yourself are struggling with anger, and that even gets broken down more, gallbladder is resentment. And so it breaks down even more, but this is kind of gives you the overall thing. But you know, if you feel like you're really struggling with anger, then again, you're going to grab an oil, and we're going to talk about some of the specific oils in a minute, but, and you do it over the liver. Grief, weakens the lungs. We had a situation, in our family a couple years ago where we had someone that was dealing with, some pretty significant grief. And it started, and then it kind of settled in the lungs, and then it was creating this cough that wouldn't go away. And it really was just grief. And so having to work through that. I just worry, my stomach, that absolutely happens to my stomach, if I'm worrying. And so, and again, stress, and that right there, that stress is enough to scare anybody. Because if you think about it, the magnitude of stress that people are under, like we just said, some is in our control, some is not, weakens the heart and brain. Neither one of those can we live without.
Right.
So again, it makes you, again, it's a check to go, okay, how can we manage stress better?
Yeah.
And then fear, over the kidneys. And that is such an interesting concept. Let me get to so, I'll talk about fear in a second. So let's talk about the aromatic, you know, how we use the oils, and that's the limbic system, you know, the little thing that sits up here when we smell. That's kind of what transfers the feelings, the smells. And that's why those of you know, you can walk into, like those of you that had the privilege of spending time at your grandparents or with your grandparents, walk into the house, maybe your grandma was a baker and she did bread or cookies or whatever it was. Chicken and noodles. Yeah, chicken and noodles. You can smell that smell today, and it can take you right back, and those good feelings just kind of flood back. The same thing happens. Those of you, music and smells are actually very similar. Those of you know, you can hear a song that maybe was something from high school, and it can take you right back there. You smell a smell, the guy that you were dating at the time, it was his, you know, cologne or whatever. You smell that, it can take you right back. So that's where, obviously, just the aromatic use of oils can help immensely with helping with emotions, mood, and that. So I think that really can help, just in a nutshell, tells us why emotions matter and why they're so important, and why they're so important to focus on. I was dealing with something about a month or so ago, and it kind of hit me again, like we talked about, like a wave, came in like a wave, wasn't expecting it. And it really kind of threw me. I mean, it knocked me down, it hit me, and I was having trouble pulling out of that. Like kind of that when the wave keeps coming and you keep trying to stand up and another one comes and another one comes. And I mean, I was doing all the things. I was teaching myself. I was teaching myself to, again, okay, you know this. I was using the oils. I was doing all the things, and I just couldn't, you know, and my daughter got home that evening, and I was telling her, and she's like, Mom, she's like, they weren't working, because sometimes we have to sit in what we're feeling in that moment until it's kind of like that concept. I don't know for you all, but sometimes if I'm thinking about something and I'm just like ruminating and chewing on it over and over and over again, it can honestly create this life of its own. And then once you speak it out loud, you're like, oh, okay. It loses its kind of dumb. It loses its power. It's the same concept as what scares you in the dark,
yeah,
you bring it to the light. You know, you're scared of this shadow, and then you turn the light on and you're like, well, it's just the tree over there.
And even in that, shadows can look much bigger than the item that's casting the shadow does.
So that is, again, that's why it's so important to realize and address. And we were talking earlier about the fact that we have these incredible tools, whether it's oils, whether it's techniques, whether it's doctors, whatever it is that you have. And really what they're doing is they're helping us in the moment.
Right.
So the oil that, like, for instance, you know, the oil is, I'm going to grab some lemongrass because I really need to let this go. Whatever this is, I need to let it go. Well, that's helping me in the moment, but I've got to be willing, maybe not right in that moment, because that might not be the best time for that, but I need to be willing to go back to that and kind of peel back those layers and start looking at things and dealing with things. Because again, nobody should want to have a meltdown all the time over everything.
That shows some instability of
emotion. Sure. Itself. And again, we have those strong feelings. There's nothing wrong with that, but we need to learn how to kind of really what it's doing is it's retraining the brain. Our brains have muscle memory and they have grooves. So when we do things, it's like habits. Feelings are the same way. When you had that feeling at 2 or 3, perhaps, that something was said to you, your brain kind of went, oh, okay. Like, for instance, let's just say this. Maybe you were crying. You were upset about something. And your mom said to you, I need you to be a big girl, you know, and not cry because mom is taking care of another baby. I'm just pulling a scenario. It's not personal. I'm just saying. And in your brain, you went, oh, well, big girls can't cry. Okay. Again, it wasn't said in anything, but your brain started that pattern and it created that groove in the brain to where this is what I think. And we do that with all sorts of things. And that's why, if those of you that are familiar with any type of trauma, PTSD training that goes on, there's a thing called EMDR training, which is a light, or it's tapping, and it is retraining the brain. So when this topic is introduced to the brain, I don't have to go here. I can teach my brain to go here because it's not happening anymore.
Right.
The trauma was in the past.
Right.
And so I'm retraining my brain to how to cope with this. And so I think that that's so powerful. And again, I know I'm just kind of throwing things out there. It's just, these are kind of concepts that some of you might be ready to, you're like, oh, that makes perfect sense. And some of you are like, oh, I don't know if I'm ready for that. And that's okay. That's absolutely okay.
Because Amy and I have both gone,
yeah, it's a journey. It's such a journey and a process. Oh, my ear is bright red. Anyway, but there is something I'm going to show you. I tried to create a new graphic for it and I couldn't get it to do this, but this concept. Okay. So we have a life experience. So in this picture, I'm just telling you what it looks like. It's a lady standing there. She's holding a baby, dog's crawling up her leg, and she's on the phone. Okay. So let's assume, and there's lines like maybe the phone call's not the best, but all of these scenarios. So then the next step is she's processing that. Her stomach gets tight. Her brain's like overthinking. All of these things are going on. And she's doing this. Well, then the next step is a reaction. Okay. So however she's reacted in that moment, but then it equals a belief. So then it like, you do this, well, then this is what must be true. That's not always the case. It's the emotion, which the emotion's real, but they're not always the truth. And when I grasped that concept, I was like, oh, all right. I mean, I just had a conversation yesterday and I said, you know, this is what my brain is saying right now, or these are what my feelings are saying right now. But I actually know that they're not true. They're real in that moment, but they're not the truth. So that's something to be able to go, okay, I can feel that. I can feel angry, or I can feel let down, or I can feel whatever. But it doesn't have to translate into a truth of that. So can you do the one with the dandelion? I just love this concept. It can be said in many ways. Sometimes people say, we got to trap the crap, those kind of things. But I just love this because we're talking about emotions. We're talking about thoughts, and the bottom line is when you look at dandelions, when we look at dandelions as an adult, we see a weed,
Right.
In the grass, it needs to be taken care of. But what do children do when they see dandelions?
They bring a flower to mommy.
Yeah, they pick them and they bring them to you, or they blow them because they're like, woohoo, this is fun. So again, as far as our thoughts go, do we need it? We need to make sure that we're getting rid of as many weeds as possible, not allowing them to take root. And just again, they're there, they're real, but they're not necessarily the truth, nor do we have to, to focus on that. So thank you. One of the other things that I want to say as far as emotions go, okay, so our emotions are there, we feel them, we can feel drama, fear, anxiety. Those are a lot of the emotions that we feel. But let me tell you what happens when we stay in that state of that. That creates our adrenal glands. It makes our adrenal glands stay in a constant state of functioning, which is the fight or flight feeling that we get. And that heightens cortisol levels. And if you're thinking to yourself, okay, maybe that is, let me tell you some symptoms of adrenal fatigue. Not doesn't mean that they are for sure, but these are things: fear, anxiety, exhaustion. Do you have any more you can think of?
Lack of sleep.
Yeah. Which would,
but it's that constant fatigue.
Yeah. And if any of those resonate with you, just Google cortisol levels and see if any of that resonates with you. But sometimes when we stay in that state of the constant state of stress, the constant state of drama.
Mind racing.
Yes. Your body is in that fight or flight mode constantly. One of my kids was having trouble sleeping, and I had thrown every oil at them, possible product. We literally could not figure it out. Well, when we were able to see the doctor that we see, she made the comment that his adrenals never dumped. So he was in a constant state of fight or flight, but it was like in a constant state of epinephrine. And so once we could get that under control, his body regulated and he was able to sleep. So let me tell you this. We were talking about different parts of the body that picture a few minutes ago about the liver and all that kind of stuff. So your adrenals sit right on top of your kidneys. Okay. They're right above your kidneys, and your kidneys is where fear is stored. So think about that. Your adrenals are doing this. They're doing this, sitting right on top of the kidneys, which is fear. So look at how all of that ties together. So I think one of the other things we just talked about is sleep. And again, all of these things play into our emotional health and our mood, because we all know if we don't get the right amount of sleep, again, or just sleep, things are not right. Things don't bode well. Those of you that are mothers and remember when your kids were little and you had such a lack of sleep and you were like, "Ooh, this is going to be a rough day because mama didn't get any sleep." And so I saw this quote recently, and I have utilized this several times recently. And it says, "Where there is lack of rest, there's an abundance of stress." And I just want you to see this so that it kind of stays in your mind, because I think that is so true. I can't see that. One of the things that for some reason recently, it has become like a badge of honor to not sleep. And let me tell you, that is not good. That is not healthy. I mean, you just Google, how long can you go without sleeping? It's not really that long.
Yeah.
So your body has to sleep, has to rest, has to rejuvenate, reset, recharge, all the stuff. And so we need to sleep. Thankfully, if that's something that you struggle with, we have tools and products that can help with that. So, and I'm very thankful.
And a lot of that is lifestyle changes.
Yes, absolutely. And it can be, and it can be just, it depends. And that's one of those things too. In the class, we always laugh because we're like, if we ask people, what's your sleep oil? And we will get a wide variety of answers. And we kind of chuckle because sometimes you're like, what in the world? That's crazy. And so again, it just kind of figuring out, and one of the things, and those of you that have spent any time with me on calls or whatever, know that one of the things I love is Symphony of the Cells, that whole concept. And we're going to talk about that in a couple of weeks. But Boyd Truman makes a statement that's the guy that put together those protocols. And he said, we are all thumbprints. and he didn't say we all have thumbprints. He said we are thumbprints. We are like thumbprints. We've all lived different lives, breathed different air, eaten different food, been under different levels of stress. So we all are our own unique being. So we can have the same symptoms. Maybe it is that we have trouble sleeping, but what's causing Carol's lack of sleep or able to sleep and mine might be two totally different things. So we're all a little bit different. And that's why I love our oils, because we have such a wide variety of oils, with a lot of them have very similar properties, but you'll find what works for you. And that just, again, with your genetic makeup, your thumbprints, they just work the best for you. So I wanted to go through real quick, and I was going to try to make a graphic of these and I didn't do it. So I'm just going to kind of read through them, and then I'm going to let you all ask some questions, whether it's something you struggle with, maybe emotionally, or even physically. If you're wondering if there's an emotional component too, we can talk about that. If there's something that you don't want to necessarily post in front of everybody, you can send that message privately to Carol.
You can actually choose, if you want to, when you're in the chat feature, you have the ability to send a message to all attendees or to the panelists only.
Yes.
If you send it to panelists only, Amy and I will.
Yes, and then when we talk about that, we won't call you out on that. Right. So don't think that. But again, I think everybody needs oils. I think everybody needs all the oils. But I think the other thing to remember before I start in this is that it's our choice to continue carrying issues and negative stuff. And that, a step on your toes. And I speak to that to myself, because again, it's like, okay, do I want to keep having these struggles or attitudes or issues? Sorry, my nose is running. Or do I want to take care of it? And again, sometimes that's scary.
Yeah.
And it's painful.
Sometimes it requires help.
Absolutely.
From someone else, or an accountability person, or
a
therapist, or a doctor, or whatever.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And there's nothing, and I think thankfully we kind of have come out of that stigma of seeking help and it being a problem, because everybody need help. It's just a matter of where you get it, what works for you. So so I'm going to just go through some of our oils, and I'm just going to kind of throw out their emotional and an emotional component to them, if that makes sense. Douglas fir helps us to see things differently. Lime can help make a positive change or bring a positive change. Lemongrass, I mentioned that, helps to let go. Wintergreen helps to move frustration. Lavender is great for communication, which the first time I heard that, I was like, that's funny. But again, if you think about it, lavender is calming, and sometimes to help us to communicate, we need to calm down. Okay. Frankincense helps to reveal truth and light to situations. It can help to kind of dispel things clear. And I love helichrysum. It is we all can call that liquid stitches, but it can also do the same thing for our emotions. And if it's something that you really feel has hurt your heart, using, especially now that we have the Healy Touch, doing that over your rolling over your heart can really help that. So, and oftentimes frankincense and wild orange are two really great oils too. If we're kind of utilizing protocols for emotions, incorporating those at the end are fun. So, and helpful. So anyway, I know I talk fast, and I know I just was trying to just kind of give an overall, and a lot of you have probably heard this already, but I just think the value in honestly looking at emotions, ours and, not in ours and others, because that makes it, but ours. But here's the key. Once you start to kind of look at that, you actually can see other people and realize that, again, when the person goes down your throat at the grocery store, or recently happened to me at a restaurant, made a snide comment as they walked out. And I was like, oh, wow. Okay. Wonder what happened that day that something obviously happened that made her feel like she needed to say that, or could say that. So once you kind of get in that, it kind of gives you, again, it gives you some sensitivity and grace to realize that, again, everybody's going through something. And again, we've talked about that for sure. And at the end, after we're done talking, let's see, are there questions? Do we have questions yet?
I'm not seeing.
Okay, let me do this real quick. If you've got questions, go ahead and type those in. But I want to do this, and I did this almost a year ago, 11 months ago now. when we started, when the COVID crazy started, and we started with our Monday night stuff. And I gave some practical tips to navigating this time period that we thought was going to be a few weeks. They're still good practical tips. And I think they're good for when the stress is high, when stress level is high, whatever's causing that. These were the practical tips. Turn off the news. Journal, brain dump. That is extremely helpful sometimes to just, you'll often find that if you just write it out, again, it's like that shining the light in, letting it out helps immensely. Zoom or FaceTime with family and friends. Do not let yourself be isolated. I am amazed. I've heard probably 3 stories in the last few days of people who have been isolated for 11 months. Mm-hmm. That's not okay. It's not okay. It's not okay because that's not how we were created. Right. We were not created to be alone.
Right.
Think about it. We watch shows and those people that live out in the woods by themselves, they're not right.
They all crazy.
They're not right. So Zoom, FaceTime. Yeah. For me, I'm going to turn on worship music. I'm going to make sure that I'm involved in my church mm-hmm. and what that looks like. And I know for some people that's still an online thing. Do that. It makes a huge difference. When you can be in person, go mm-hmm. find that church. And if you don't have one that you can do, on online, let me know. I'll be happy to share our church's information yep. With you, and you could at least do that way. Get out in the sun if you can. Right now, I know we can't. But let me back that up. It was just warm a couple days ago, and it's supposed to be in the 50s, right?
Like Thursday or Friday,
yeah. and then be
yeah.
10 degrees. So again, when it is yeah. sunny or warm, get out in the sun, yeah. walk in the grass. Those are all things. Those are very
and it doesn't have to be bold sunlight.
Yeah.
If it's warm enough to be outside because mm-hmm. you're getting some sunlight.
Well, it's funny when when we redid our house after our boys moved out, we kind of switched rooms around. I have an office, and I knew that how I was going to set my office up. Well, then it hit me one day. I got to completely flip-flop the room because I need to be able to see outside. I need to be able to see out the window. And my desk was going to be, my desk was going to be here and the window was over here. Yeah. And I was like, I need to be able to see. And again, doesn't mean the sunlight's pouring in. Yeah. It doesn't mean that, but I knew I needed to be able to do that. So, yeah. And also I think, even if you're kind of trying to figure out, okay, what oils do I, what oils get for this? And what should I use for this? Just do an oil that you love. I mean, that's, to me, if you love the smell of it, you'll love the smell of it. And yep. that in and of itself, that whole limbic system and all of that does, absolutely.
Put it in your hand lotion, put it in your shampoo, put it in your, whatever you need to put it
on
in.
your ring,
yeah.
on your necklace, yeah. under your nose, doesn't matter. Just utilize the oils.
One of the things that I've also found to be super helpful in the last year, almost a year, is to find an activity that for mm-hmm. you is calming. Absolutely. So if that's doing a puzzle, I have a table set up in my mm-hmm. right over here. That's up like year round, and I'll throw out puzzles every once mm-hmm. in a while.
Yeah.
If you knit or crochet, mm-hmm. or there's other crafts that you do, or whatever, reading, whatever it is that calms you, make time. Because I think we all get really guilty of feeling like we have so much to do or the world's going to fall apart.
Yeah.
That we don't take time to do the things that calm us and can soothe us.
And again, we've talked about this before. I think with our generation and now on, self-care has become very much an awareness mm-hmm. that it matters. It's important. And there's nothing guilty about that, to feel guilty about. So again, we need to do those things. Those of you know, I've had a graphic before of, you can't pour from an empty cup. Mm-hmm. I mean, when that cup's empty, there's nothing coming out. So we've got to find ways to do that and remember that that's important.
Yeah. And we all have people, even I'm single, mm-hmm. I live by myself, but we all have people who rely upon us
Absolutely.
For
mm-hmm.
support and encouragement and mm-hmm. just all kinds of things.
And we were just talking about that earlier, and where you get to where you're just like, oh my goodness. And it is, and God's entrusted you, and in certain scenarios, those of you, and then He's going to enable you. But it's just,
but the other side of that is, if you're not taking care of yourself, when it comes time that someone else needs you, you're not going to be available for them.
It's like the whole airplane thing, when they say, if you're when we can fly again.
Yeah.
And, you know, when they're like, we have something will happen if the oxygen masks sort of fall, if you're traveling with a child or someone that needs assistance, and Carol knows, if that happens, I'm the one going to be needing assistance, because if the oxygen mask falls, I'm going to freak out. I'm just telling you, I'm going to freak out. But to put that over the one not freaking out, put your oxygen mask on, and then help your friend with the oxygen mask, because we can't help if I'm trying to help them. It's like the whole swimming thing, you know, if you're trying to, anyway, it's just all around. So we have to take care of ourselves. One more picture. I'm going to show the very last picture. And then we're going to take questions. So please, I know it's harder.
You got your questions. You should start typing them now.
It's harder to chat this way, I know, but we're going to do that. So, and I love this picture. I saw this recently, and I just thought it was so interesting. So this is the exact same location, exact same tree, exact same.
Pretty much like my picture.
Yes, it does. Minus the barn. But what I love about it is that these are the different seasons. So again, we're all going through different seasons, but ultimately we're the same person. And I just love this because it looks different. Obviously, the bottom is winter. It's cold. The tree's bare. All the things, and you're just like, oh, am I ever going to get through this? But you will. And I just love it. I just think that it's so cool. And I think the other thing too is that that's what we're here for, again, as a team. Mm-hmm. Again, we say all the time, Team Holds is here for connection, community, and continuing education. And that is what we are, that's what we're here for. And so again, we're going to go through seasons. Some of us are going to be in winter at the time that somebody else is in summer. And that's okay, because that actually helps. It helps. But we're all going to go through hard times. We're all going to go through, emotions and good, bad, hard, easy. But that's part of life. And that's part of who we are. So.
Okay, so Bridget wants you to list the oils and the use.
Yes, I know. I rattled those off fast. Let me go back to them. And just so that you all know, one of the tools that we have is an emotions, and you can get, there's several kinds of these. I really like this. I like this author, and like the way that hers are set up. But this is an emotions, an oils resource. So for instance, I just opened to Wild Orange. Wild Orange is the oil of abundance, and the negative emotions they can help with: scarcity, overly serious, rigid, dull, workaholic. And so I like this, but the ones that I listed off were Douglas fir, and that helps to see things differently. Lime helps with positive change. Lemongrass helps to let go. Melaleuca is also one that helps with that. Wintergreen helps to move frustration. And if that is something that you're dealing with, I would do wintergreen over the gallbladder area. Side note, disclaimer, sometimes when you do that, especially if you're dealing with anger and over the liver, sometimes it will release that. Women, it tends to release in tears. Men, sometimes guys, it tends to come out more like anger, frustration comes out that way. Not always, but that can do that. So just be prepared. It's not end of the world. Just be prepared.
Batten down the hatches.
So don't dump a whole bottle of, that over your liver, and be prepared.
24/7 diffusing of wintergreen when you're frustrated is probably not a good idea.
Good question, Peggy. What if you don't have a gallbladder? I asked this question of my a knowledgeable doctor, and she said you actually utilize it over the same place where the gallbladder would be, because the energy in the body still flows through that area. So good to know, right? Because I wondered that too. What if you don't have one? Mm-hmm. Same thing with uterus for the people who have had hysterectomies. Yep. Same thing. You would still do it over the uterine area for what you were dealing with. Lavender is great for communication. Frankincense helps to reveal truth and give light to situations, which I love that, because a lot of times we're just like, oh, I don't know. I don't know what to do. I can't, this doesn't make sense. Yeah. So I love that. And then the last one we talked about was Helichrysum. And it is one that we just kind of look at as liquid stitches, but it can do the same thing for emotions. So if you feel like your emotions have been shattered, things have been just kind of ripped apart, Healy is great for that. And again, like I said, the Healy Touch now that we have, and just roll that right over the heart. Again, I know that was, and I had intended to do a graphic for that so that you all could just screenshot it and take a picture of that. So again, I know for some people, this is all might be brand new and you're just like, whoa, y'all are nuts. But again, I think what's so interesting is that when you start to kind of learn that, or you start to kind of, you get a resource and you start kind of looking through and you're like, ooh, that makes perfect sense. Because sometimes an oil that you really love, there might be a reason for that. And sometimes if there's an oil that you really don't love, just check that out because there might be something in that as well. This says, I think self-care is what I need now that I listened to how you describe it. I still care for my husband, even if he is living in a group home now. There are always issues to deal with. I visit to keep eyes on him and give the human touch and engagement that he loves. The staff is good with him, but hang on, we gotta scroll up. It's not moving.
It's not moving.
We're frozen just a second. Hang on, we're scrolling. The staff is good with him, but it's different when I can just stay with him an hour or two at a time. So how do I take care of me so that I can best take care of him? Just went through pneumonia in December and a stop of toxic eliminations in January. I ended up with all the oil protocols because the med staff brought in to help were disappointing, to put it nicely, although we did get a sonogram that showed no blockage. Good. Sweet friend, I know. Yeah. You encouraged me, honestly, and watching you love your husband. See?
I'm no help. It's an incredible example to all of us.
But you're right. You do need to take care of yourself. And I would say for you, and I know you're already doing this, but the foundation, taking vitamins and supplements and giving yourself that solid foundation for then all of the other things that you do. I know you have a good group of people and support, but you have to have that. Yeah. You cannot walk this journey alone. Yeah. I don't think God created any of us to walk this journey alone, but what you're walking through, you definitely need to have people. And I think it's her sister, right? I think your sister is close to you, Terry. I know. Oh, pretty sure.
Well, not geographically, but they are very close.
Okay. Yeah. For some reason I was thinking.
Her sister lives here.
Oh, okay. Yeah. But just keeping that, whether it's, whatever that is, whether it's somebody that lives close to you, somebody that you're in constant contact with. I'm in a lot of contact with my sister who lives in Florida. And so keeping those people that, and again, you don't have to have a laundry list of those people. Doesn't mean there's 10 that you bare your soul to, but you do have those few. And my daughter and I were talking today and I said, you have to have those people that are safe, that you can vent to, and that you can talk to, and that help talk you through. Doesn't mean there's anything wrong with that. Again, our feelings are real. And the situation sometimes we're in, we might feel mad. We might feel hurt. We might feel whatever that is. And we need to be able to acknowledge that and let that person know. I'm telling you this, my sister knows that. She's like, I want you to know this is how I feel right now. And that's okay. And they help you listen and then help you process through that and move through. Because again, there's a difference between, sometimes we have to stay in something for a minute, sit in it for a minute. The problem is when we sit in it too long. Yeah. Because the bottom line is, and I know this is a cliche, but the bottom line is we either become better or become bitter. And the choice is ours. It really is. Yeah. The choice is ours. So make sure that you surround yourself with people who help you become better, not bitter.
And Terry, I'm going to encourage you just to have worship music going.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Music in our household. And those of all three of Doug and I both sing and have grown up singing and all of three of our children do as well. And that is just like this morning, I literally woke up and this happens to me on a weekly basis, and a song was running over and over and over in my mind. And sometimes I share it with all of you on Facebook, and sometimes I don't. But the music is so powerful to just to us in general. I think because it speaks to us, it's just on a different level.
Yeah.
And again, it's music, oils, it's the same. It's just those, the limbic system.
And if you need help with some songs or some artists or albums or whatever to find, shoot us a message.
Absolutely.
And we'll send you a list.
Absolutely. And you're right. Worship changes the atmosphere. Yeah. And that's why I think too, like I can, and I'll be transparent. On Saturday, I knew I was struggling on Saturday a little bit. And those of you know that were on last week, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm teaching emotions next week. And I was like, oh boy. And I was ready for it, and I was kind of ready. But on Saturday, it just kind of, again, those waves, there were about 3 of them, boom, 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 right in a row. And we now have a Saturday night church service. And so I was there. I had to go early with Ashlyn. And so they were my son and daughter, 2 of my kids, lead worship for that service on Saturday night. And they were practicing. And so I was sitting in the pew, we don't even have pews, sitting in the chairs. And I was working on kind of going over my stuff for tonight. And so I'm sitting, and I had literally turned my back so that it was kind of a way to say, hey, people, leave me alone. Yeah. I'm really trying to do something. And I'm working on my stuff. And then my kids start singing, and and then I was like struggling. And then I got a text message from somebody that said, hey, I just want you to know I'm praying for you. And I thought, oh, I'm going to lose it right here. And I can't, whatever. And so all of that to say, it was, those songs and those things just so mean so much to you. And sometimes it'll be this song you've heard 100 times, and all of a sudden it just speaks right to what you're walking through and right to what you're going through. Yeah. So, and I'm so thankful for music and that tool that it is to us. Excuse me.
Oh, anybody else?
Love you, Beth. That's my sister. One of my sisters. I have 3. So again, I hope this makes sense. I would like to do a deeper dive. Not right now. But I would like to do a deeper dive into Carol and I are looking at some things to do in the future, and maybe do some more in-depth stuff on some different topics. But I, again, like I said, I am emotional. I just showed you that 5 minutes ago. But again, for me, I think there was such freedom in that too, because I realized it's okay. Yeah. It's okay. God made me this way. Again, I can feel things deeply for people I know or don't know. And I'm thankful that we have the tools. I'm thankful that I can slather adaptive all over myself before I'm headed out the door or headed into a situation that I know might be that could be a little bit volatile. Yeah. Or I might be, you just know that. And we start to learn, just like you do with the oils. Yeah. You start to know, we talk all the time about.
I'm going to need a little extra adaptive today.
Sure. But we've learned as far as physically goes. Right. We deal with stuff initially. We nip it in the bud. We don't let it escalate to this whole thing.
Nip it.
Right. But we do the same thing with emotions, and we can. Again, sometimes I'm going to be honest. Sometimes I think the emotions sometimes are stronger than what we're dealing with physically, because often I feel like I can take care of the physical aspect on a much lower, a more grassroots level sometimes than I can emotions. But I think that's just where we were made.
In part too, that's because we sometimes let emotions get ahead of us before we even realize that that's a part of what's going on. So.
True. Yeah. So,
and they can be so easily triggered.
Oh yeah. So yeah, yep, they can be. And I think too, we often kind of think of that as women, but guys are the same way. They really are. It's just different. They're compartmentalized. I always say men are waffles and women are spaghetti. Mm-hmm. So men have their little compartments of their little waffle squares.
Their little box.
And their little syrup can stay in that box. But women always spaghetti. And, if you put syrup on your spaghetti, that's fine. But you can't pull out one piece of spaghetti without touching a bunch of others. And that's kind of how we are. So anyway. So I hope I hope that was helpful. I know it was kind of broad, but I kind of did that on purpose because I was just trying to touch on various things.
Literally, this could be
I could talk for
an
hours.
all-day seminar.
Yeah. That'd be fun. I say fun, but yeah. So So anyway, anybody else have any other questions, any thoughts
or comments
or any oils? If you have an oil that you're like, I'd really love to know what the emotional component is of an oil.
I have a favorite, and that is spearmint. If you are walking into a situation where you need to be able to speak confidently, spearmint is the oil of confident speech. So
most of the time before I do anything like this, although I did not tonight, evidently my tea was more important than that. I normally do motivate and spearmint is normally my combination. I roll here and under my nose, and motivate helps me to focus. And spearmint helps to be able to speak clearly and confidently. So that would be my two. Okay, I see that. So anyway, so anybody else? Anything else? Again, I love talking about oils, emotions.
Beth says she needs to douse
Hey, just so that you all know, those of you that might struggle with focus and maybe even focus, well, let's say focus. Intune is not my favorite oil. I can do Thinker. I can handle Thinker, the kids line, a whole lot easier. But what I've discovered that a good combination for me when I need to focus and get stuff done is Motivate and Passion. I use both of those oils together, and either diffusing or topically. And I can really rein in and focus. Diffusing Slim and Sassy also helps too. I know that sounds weird, but so, but I've discovered that. So, whoa, guys, look at my ears. Woo, red.
Blood pressure's up.
Yes. So, all righty. Let's see. It says one new message. Is
that was Beth saying?
Okay.
Some of that.
Okay. Gotcha. All righty, guys. Well, it was good to see you all tonight. Again, we will be back next Monday. Yeah. We'll do the spa line, and we'll most likely have some people here live, and we'll do that with them. And
so for next week, your homework assignment for next week is to gather some of the spa items that you have and have them available to you while you watch the video, because we'll call on it and you can use it while we're
that's good. Yeah,
Amy and Peggy and I have a mentor that we watch some videos on, and it's really funny because you know that she's about to get feisty or have just a really strong message for us when she pulls out the hand lotion.
And she starts putting her hand lotion on. You're like, oh boy, here we go.
You can hear her rings click.
Yeah, here we go. So
here it's coming. So. All right.